Welcome to my first podcast. And no, that's not the name of the podcast. I don't even know what the name of the podcast is. I guess I'm just going to call it Taboo. But this is a podcast of Shoreline Church, of which I am a pastor. My name is Eric. And I have a guest, which is our youth minister, Whitney Berg. How are you doing, Whitney?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
It feels like fall today.
It does feel wonderful out there today.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Finally, summer's over.
October 2nd. It feels like fall.
Yay. No leaves changing.
No.
But anyway, let me explain this podcast a little bit, is that we are in a series right now called Taboo, where we're talking about things in the church that we don't really talk about, whether we shouldn't talk about them or people believe we won't talk about them. And it's going all the whole month of October, but there are some topics that we felt like that needed to be discussed more. And so we thought we'd handle them here on a podcast. And we're hoping that this eventually leads to a regular podcast coming out of Shoreline Church, maybe mine. I don't know if we'll call it Taboo, but for the sake of this podcast, we'll just call it the Taboo Podcast, which I don't know if that's kind of scary or not. Ooh, that's so taboo.
It's kind of fun.
But I have to do what they all say on podcasts that I watch, which I've been on podcasts. You've been on podcasts,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I've been on them, but I've never hosted one. But I have to say, like and subscribe. Don't you have to do
Right.
that? Yeah,
Then
so
you
if you
point to
like this,
something.
like it. And if you want to subscribe, which would be to the Shoreline podcast. But then when we come out with our whatever podcast it is, you can subscribe to that. And if you want to help us build a podcast studio at Shoreline Church, you can make all your donations to.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, what we're doing, I explained what Taboo is about. And I just want to kind of give you the premise of it. There was always, when I grew up, there was topics that you didn't talk about. They were taboo, at home. I think my mom used to say, never discuss politics and religion.
And money.
Or money came different. Politics and religion was either at a bar, or don't talk about it at Thanksgiving or
Yes.
holidays, like that. But then my mom also taught me, you never discuss money and our financial situation outside this home.
Yes.
Yeah. So those were taboo subjects, right? Did you have any taboo subjects when you were growing up?
Definitely money, and then just the family drama, obviously. Like, this stays here. You're not to talk about it with your friends or anyone else. So it was very close-lipped.
Yeah, yeah. And so what the idea is that there are some subjects that in the church, either the church won't talk about them, or some people think the church shouldn't talk about them. And so what we've decided to do, especially in light of what's going on in our culture, that we should talk about them. Yeah. So Whitney, tell us where you're from.
So I'm from Portland, Oregon. We were a military family, which is actually pretty unheard of in Portland, Oregon. There are no bases. When my husband said he was going to join, I laughed. And I said, no, really, what are you doing? And he said, yeah, no, I'm going to join the Air Force. So we moved from Portland to Colorado Springs, and then we found ourselves here.
Yeah. And that's when I met you, right? How long had you lived here before we met you?
Like 6 months.
Okay, so we met you pretty soon.
Yeah.
Started attending our Fort Walton Beach campus.
Yep.
You did a lot of things. You were working with MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers.
Yep, that's where I started, but I brought MOPS to Shoreline, and then I was like, well, if I'm going to run my own thing, I should probably serve on Sundays, so I started in the nursery.
Yeah. And you have done a lot of different, what all have you done at Shoreline Church?
I like serving. Obviously, I served before I worked here, so I worked in tide pools, is what we called it, our nursery,
remember
and
that.
then I was tasked to schedule for it. So I ran the whole team with my friend Anna, and then we moved to our Destin campus. We merged, and I worked in the cafe. I've worked in host team. I have been the admin assistant, and so in the business office, young adults, and sisterhood, and now youth.
That's awesome. Now, when did you start? Because you and our husband are the youth ministers. You and our husband, did I just say our husband?
You did.
I just spent
I know.
like 10 days. I just spent a week with your husband, so it
did.
just
He's
feels
pretty
like
great.
mine too. No, you and your husband are the youth ministers. When did you guys start? Was
In
it right
youth?
after COVID, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Brad actually started before me. He went to go play paintball with them. and realized that it was organized, but nobody was in charge. So he was like, well, I guess I'm in charge now. And then he's been a part of it ever since. I started in 2021. So I think he was like 2 years before me. I started in 2021 where I kind of got roped into going to camp. It was like there was one female leader and our youth pastor. And she's like, please, can you go? And I told her, no. But if you need someone, come back. Ask everybody that you can. And then if you can't find somebody, I might do it.
That sounds a lot like mine, being a chaperone to Wet and Wild.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, now I love them. So I guess I'm staying.
Yeah, and tell us about what's happening, because it seems like it's growing, and it also, and I think this ties in with our topic in just a moment. We are seeing all over the country, not just in our youth ministry, young people coming to the Lord, coming to church, looking for truth. Is that what has that been your experience, and what have you seen?
100%. So we started and we would just tell them, like, invite your friends. You never know who is going to need this. Like, you love it for a reason, so you should invite them. So part of it is the culture of invite that we have, and which is a shoreline thing, right? We always say invite. So it started there, and then watching them grow and not just want answers, but truth.
Yeah.
And like we actually start all of our services now reading the scripture that we're going to be teaching on, because we noticed that when sometimes they would talk and talk until we got to the portion where we read scripture, because, you know, the way we
Sure.
organize messages, but they would go silent. I read the entirety of Revelation chapter 4, like the picture of heaven, and you could hear a pin drop. And so it's like, maybe there's something to that. So, and I have a student read it. And so it encourages and empowers them to read the word. And it's been really cool to watch. And they keep inviting.
So the topic that we want to talk about today is mental health. And I invited you in because you are in, what do you call it? Not seminary, Bible college. You're in going to, what is your?
It's Bethel University. So
Okay.
It's a Christian university located in Minnesota. And I'm getting my bachelor's in Christian ministries and a minor in psychology.
Psychology. So I think you'd be more familiar with this topic. And when we were deciding on the topics to speak on a Sunday morning, I was like, it's not really my wheelhouse. So I didn't want, I mean, I could do some research and come up with some studies. I mean, there's nothing you can't find these days and sound like I know what I'm talking about, but instead I'd just rather talk to people who might know more than me about it.
This is more fun.
Yeah. So when it comes to mental health, I just want to, one of the reasons why we're talking about it in the church is because a lot of people, and it's true, a lot of people don't really talk about mental health. It can go back all the way to when I first became a Christian in the 80s and 90s, and there's some reasons for that. But generally, I think people are talking about mental health in our culture, but the thing I see is nobody has any answers.
Yeah.
I mean, we all agree that mental health is an issue in our culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
especially with our young people.
Young people, which is what I want to get to, but it's also connected to shootings.
Yeah.
It's connected. I mean, it's just so connected. Homelessness. In fact, just as a little background, and then I'm not going to do all the talking. I'm going to try not to. I'm a preacher, but
I'm like, you just like to talk, and that's okay.
So a little background before you were born. When I was younger, we had mental institutions in the United States. Now, I'm not saying they were good. In fact, a lot of atrocities were discovered at these mental institutions, including the one that was in this region. When I grew up, we used to say to one another, oh, what are you crazy? What do you live in Chattahoochee? Because Chattahoochee, which is just a couple hours from here towards Tallahassee,
way down
that was
yonder.
where the mental institution was located. Well, back in I think it was the 80s and 90s, they did a big discovery and discovered mass graves there, unmarked graves. So I mean, the atrocities that were happening in mental institutions were horrible. And I think the mentality was, hey, let's just take people who have mental health issues, put them aside. You know, you don't see them. You don't. What's the word? Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So they started closing all these mental institutions, and I think, but there was no answer. There was no solutions.
Now we see them on the streets, right?
Yeah. Well, everything. I mean, everything is connected mentally. And of course, the stuff that we're dealing with now as a culture, a lot of it is mental health, including what we're dealing with young people. So that's where I wanted your expertise. And I guess my first question is this, because I said earlier that it's not my wheelhouse. I've never really dealt with mental health issues. My family, they weren't there. I didn't have any mental health, family members that have mental health issues. And I haven't dealt with anything like, I don't really deal with depression. And my wife's like, you don't understand. So my first question is, have you ever dealt with it in your family? Like, have you ever dealt with mental health issues or have a family member that had these issues? And if you did, what was that like, and what did you learn from it?
So, yes, I'm actually pretty sure my biological father was bipolar. Just looking at him, he also was an alcoholic, which that can be tied to mental health issues also. And so as a teenager, I was diagnosed with depression and put on medication. And I never liked the way that it made me feel because I felt more numb. And I'm a very passionate person and with a lot of feelings. And so I didn't go that route. And then as I got a little bit older, I started going to therapy, like just going to counselors, because I figure like I was taken out of my hometown and now I'm in this place where I don't know where I am. I'm a newly married mom. And so I just figured I needed somebody to talk with me about these things. So I went to a counselor in Colorado Springs, and she taught me a lot of things. And then when I was a little bit older here, it was my biological father had passed away and I hadn't talked to him in like 9 years. But my first thought was like, I should probably go to like some therapy. Like that would make sense. And as we got into it, she one day was like, I think you might have a personality disorder. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And I don't know if I accept that. So
Were you a Christ follower at this point?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was, but very new. I've always had a background and a foundation of faith, but not a relationship with the Lord. Like I didn't know what that looked like or what that meant, but I knew who Jesus was. And so that at the same time, I actually started going to Catalyst, which changed my life. So I did both and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catalyst here in Fort Walton.
Yeah. Or Freedom Study for those who don't know. We renamed it.
So did they put you on medication or try to put you on medication?
No, I'm so opposed to it that I just was internally like, I don't accept that.
Yeah.
And so and then I ended up getting pneumonia and I stopped going. So
Okay, that's good. Because I read I read things.
oh, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. No, I was just reading the other day was because I follow this called Life Detoxed. And it just talks all about, and one of the things it says is that, or they talked about is that started a long time ago with just small things, but that this whole idea of chemical imbalances, personality disorders was really just, I mean, even though there's mental issues, but what the big pharma got into it to be able to prescribe, and then it's all about prescribing the drugs for those issues.
Yeah.
Like you said, you didn't like how it made you feel or something like that,
But for some people it does work. But I think where we need to, when you go in and you want to be on medication because you can't seem to get ahead or like from drowning, have an exit plan. Like, how long are we going to do this, and pair it with something like counseling and not just like, here, take a pill.
Yeah, exactly. Because all that does is it just masks the symptoms.
Exactly.
It doesn't,
you got to get to the root.
Yeah, it's like putting a bandage over a knife in your leg.
Exactly.
Oh, I just cover the symptoms, but I really need to remove the knife. And that's kind of where I struggled because I didn't have any I didn't have any experience with dealing with mental health issues. And so, but when I became a Christ follower, I was very into the Word of God, and I was like, well, just put on some worship music. And, people go, it's more than that. And I think that I'm not against medication. I think medication can help you, especially like what you just said. Maybe it'll help you deal with it, but there are things that you need to do to find the root cause, just like everything else in our medical life that are causing that mental health issues, or where you think about yourself, or you can even physical, why are you having heartburn all the time? Well, there's probably something you're doing. Instead of covering it up, figure out what it is. And so I've always tried to encourage people, take the medication for now, but your goal should be get off the medication because you are you're diagnosing yourself, and then
living with the label.
Yeah.
Rather than the label, the one that we should be living with as Christ followers is children of God.
That's right. And the Word of God is transformative. And I can isn't that what the Apostle Paul said? Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
So that means my mind can be going in a direction that I can transform that direction if I renew it. So it's not just completely medical based. It should be, I'm going to do some work, which would be for me, the word of God,
Mm-hmm.
saying who I am, worshiping God and things like that.
And then getting tools sometimes, like talking with a counselor can be so helpful because now you're sharing these internal thoughts that you're having and you're in this cyclical cycle. And to have somebody who can be an outside perspective and like mirror back to you what they're hearing and then give you tools because sometimes we don't know how to do it on our own.
Yes. All right, so let's change gears here a little bit because I want to get to some things, but because of your expertise right now, because of what you're studying in school, and you are on the front lines of dealing with teenagers, and I think that's one of the areas where we're seeing more and more mental issues in the last 10 years than any. I mean, because I was in youth ministry for 17 years, but I haven't been in there for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing? In fact, let me grab the question that I was going to ask you on it. How often do mental health concerns come up in your conversations with students or in your interaction with students? How much are you guys dealing with mental health issues? And I know that's a broad topic because it could be anything from depression to what is this? Gender
Dysphoria.
dysphoria. That's what
I got you. I got you.
I'm not a smart man. I don't even know off a podcast.
Don't speak that about yourself.
Yeah.
Speak life.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what do you see?
That's what a counselor does. No.
Yeah.
So we are definitely seeing a lot of anxiety. That is one of the number one things that this generation is going through, which really I think is attributed a lot to the phones and the technology that we have. Our minds are very malleable, right? We talk about transforming your mind. So we know that you don't have to stay stuck in the ruts that are formed, right? Our neural pathways. But we are also really very similar to the way that we were when God made Adam. And so things like fight or flight, that's a natural response inside of us. So if you have a phone that is constantly dinging and pinging, it immediately puts yourself into fight or flight, and then you're seeing all these people and you have so many voices speaking into your life and into your mind that it can be overwhelming, on top of the types of families that it's like, all right, we have dance on this day, and then on this day we do soccer, and then church, hopefully youth group on Wednesday. And then right there, it's overfilled schedules that they don't really get a time to unwind. Mm-hmm. So many of them go to sleep listening to either music or TV. And so there's not the process of like when we go to sleep, our brain essentially like cleans up the house and it restores all of the files. But if you have something constantly going, there is no space for that.
Yeah, and isn't that what reading used to do? Reading at bed before you go to bed is really kind of calm your mind down.
I just bought a book light because Brad goes to bed earlier than me, so that I could read at night again.
That's the what I like about my Kindle. Is I can read it all the time, but I am reading a regular book right now, so I have to turn the light on. But I also do listen to music sometimes, and I do sometimes fall asleep to Seinfeld or some mindless.
Same, I do it too. I'm not exempt from this. Yeah. I just see the problem. I'm like, And
when I read Life Detox, they talk about turning your screens off before, kind of getting back to your circadian rhythm, and not being on screens, because that brings up the anxiety. But then they also did say, but there is some truth to sometimes, doing what I do, which I'm like, see, it's scientifically proven. I put on Seinfeld because I've seen it a gazillion times. So that because if I'm watching something that I need to follow the plot, then I'm not going to go to sleep.
It's like comfort food.
Yeah.
Right?
Eventually, next thing you know, you're asleep.
Do.
So you put a timer on I don't have a TV in my bedroom, so that's usually on the couch. But I had a question that you said, but I can't remember what it is now. I should have. Maybe I. So do you remember back right after COVID, there was a movie that came out that was called something, The Experiment. Anybody y'all remember that, about social media? It was like the big. Do you remember what the name of that movie was? It was a documentary.
I remember watching. I watched a lot of documentaries that year.
Who like invented all the different apps, for Apple and Microsoft.
Silicon Valley.
They said, we don't allow he says, one of the things I've done is I've turned off in all our family's phones, we get no notifications. I've turned off all the notifications.
Because they know what they're doing. It's addictive. That's the point of it.
Exactly. And they talked about, we did this on purpose because people get addicted to phones. So I know my staff gets frustrated with me because I went and turned off all of my notifications as well. So then I forget to look at Telegram, which has our staff thread, our lead team. And they're like, hey, you haven't been on here in 6 days. We're trying to talk to you. I'm like, oh yeah, I forget. But it does. I mean, if you can get rid of that notifications, it really helps you do that. So, let me get this question. So we are seeing a lot of mental issues, more and more with each generation, it looks like.
Yeah.
Because I told you when I was in youth ministry, we were dealing with cutting and dyslexia. Not dyslexia. What's the other? Dyslexia. We're still dealing with that. Oh, I feel so dumb as a podcaster now.
Part of your charm.
Anorexia. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yes.
Oh, you can read minds?
Anorexia, bulimia, right?
We were dealing with that. Now the issues are, I don't know what gender I am. So it seems like they're getting more and more complex. Do you ever feel underqualified or
100%.
Yeah.
We'll say that again.
Under-equipped to help students?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am still me. I am a human and I don't have all of the answers, but that's right. God equips the qualified. Right? How does that say? Yeah, he called me to do this, so he equips me. And sometimes when I don't have all the answers, that's why we are in a community of people, and it's like, let me send you over here.
Yeah. So then that makes it more difficult because this idea of mental health, I mean, it's more than a podcast. I mean, it's so complicated. It's so complex, especially when you're talking about dealing with how people believe, and the way young people we're seeing have been indoctrinated to certain worldviews. And then they come to the church and the church views or our worldview is completely foreign to them. I have a story about, well, I don't know. I'll get to that later. So what do you feel like the church needs to do to help you? Or just how can the church talk about it more? Because like I said earlier, not only do I see culture talking about it, but I don't see any answers. I don't see anybody come. Actually, I think if somebody could come up with some proven, I don't know, you'd be rich or you'd be famous. I mean, because we need it. We've got to figure out this mental health issue in our country because so many things are connected to it. Is there anything that you're thinking that you could help you? Or, I mean, I know you're going to school, but what do you think the church needs to do to enter this conversation more?
I think just talk about it, even if we don't have all the answers. So Craig Rochelle is one of the first ones that I've really seen that it talks about neuroplasticity. And when he writes these sermons, he consults with multiple mental health professionals. And so there are trailblazers that are doing it. And so even if we don't feel necessarily equipped to do it ourselves, there are people that have gone before us that we can learn from. We're actually in our youth ministry. I'm taking one of Craig Rochelle's ones called Peace of Mind, and we're starting that in 3 weeks. And we're talking about mental health because it is so important because our feelings are not facts. But a lot of the time, these students are so aware of their emotions but they don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I just feel like we need to talk about then what do we do with all of these feelings? They are not necessarily, they don't have to run us. We can harness our emotions, and they are typically like gaslights, right? Our gaslight goes on to tell us we need gas.
Was that the right word? Typically like gaslight.
In a vehicle.
Yeah,
a vehicle. Right? It's a check engine light.
You're not crazy.
You just got gas.
Yeah. So, Dr. Caroline Leaf, she's entered the conversation in the last, I don't know, seems like 5-10 years.
Yeah.
And I think she's helped usher in this conversation about mental health. But she also, I think she does it from a medical and because she is a neuroscientist.
Yes.
So she comes from a scientific background. So it's not just emotions or, but she comes from like how our brain is wired, which I think is interesting because I think it actually confirms the word of God with what she's saying about how we think and how we process things.
There was actually a long time where they taught that our brains you can't change.
Yeah.
And so I remember my mom saying that they can't change, but because she was so into learning and growing. And so she read a lot, but that was the old science. And Dr. Caroline Leaf came in and said, there's actually so much truth to what God said. You can renew your mind and you can become a new person.
Yeah, because I used to teach this. I used to teach before I even read any of your stuff, and I'm with youth ministers. This is 20 years ago with students. Was that when I was younger, living here in the area when you could actually go out on the Eglin Reservation, and we used to take our cars and Jeeps and go out there and go run around all those trails. And some of them, the ruts were so deep that I could let go of the steering wheel and my car would self-drive.
Yes.
And I would describe that's how when we build habits in our mind, it create these ruts that we naturally go down.
Yep.
And you don't even have to do anything; it just naturally goes down there. And that if we can create habits in our life or thought patterns that change those ruts, we can change our destination. And
Yep. And now science is proving your point.
Yeah.
I love that. You are a smart man.
Well, actually, smart man. There's so much stuff I see that as science gets more and more, I don't know,
Advanced,
that actually confirms things in the Bible rather than contradicts them.
which is so cool.
So I want to go another area, and then we're going to ask you final questions about what else can we do? What do you think the church needs to do? But so when I became a Christian, they didn't talk a lot about mental health at all. As a matter of fact, biblically we believe that the body, human being, is made up of three components, right? Your spirit, soul, and your body.
Yep.
And we have learned, especially because of Hebrews says this, that your soul is made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So becoming a Christian and a Christ follower in the 80s and into the 90s as I was growing, and I became a Christ follower in the charismatic movement. They didn't often deal with feelings. They would say things like, well, those are your feelings. Feelings lie to you. Just believe God or confess the word. And they basically would never talk about feelings. But the truth is, if we are made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions, or the soul is made up of spirit, soul, and body, mankind is made up, we are a spirit, soul, body.
Yes.
The soul is made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions. Well, that's a major part of your life. And those are the things, like when we talk about mental issues, isn't it? That's where we're dealing with our mind. We're dealing with our will. I don't want to do that. We're dealing with, you just said, they don't know how to control their emotions. They don't know how to understand their emotions. So we haven't been trained in those areas. So I really think that's something that the church really needs to address instead of going, oh, that's just your feelings, which is true. But we've got to teach and equip, I believe, especially young people, the next generation, what to do with those, because God gave you emotions for a reason.
Yes.
But he didn't give them to you for them to run your life.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I don't feel like going to work.
Right?
Yeah, that's just my mind, my will, my emotions. So what do you think is, because again, I say I didn't want to talk about this subject because I don't feel qualified. What can the church do in the future, especially when I think people are starting to recognize some of the issues that we are dealing with are mental issues and not, they're, yeah. So what do you think? What do you think the church can do? How can the church walk alongside teenagers, young people, without minimizing their emotional pain, but yet still help them overcome these areas?
Well, like I said before, definitely talking about it. And then if we don't, because if we just skirt around the issue or pretend like it's not happening, then it just becomes like it was when you entered the church, where we're just ignoring the problem completely. And I don't think that we need to necessarily have all of the answers, but go to people that maybe are a little further along than us and resource them.
Yeah.
I think that can be so helpful in whether it's sending them to a therapist that we know. We were at camp and we were dealing with a student who was having some issues, and that they had a counselor on site, and she gave me her card and said that she actually does Zoom counseling for free with our kids. And so finding and partnering with people like that who they already know the things and they know how to help them, and when maybe you feel underqualified.
Yeah. Is there a difference between counseling and therapy?
There is. So it depends on, it's kind of a whole world to it, but counseling is like talk therapy. Like you and me sitting here, you tell me how you're feeling. I kind of reflect back. I can give you tools. Whereas there is a psychotherapy where they recognize that I have a mood disorder. And so now they're going to prescribe me medication and walk with me through that journey. So still the talk, but then the medication on top of it.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Well, obviously, there's a whole lot more to this subject than we have time for. And I don't even, again, this is supposed to be taboo things that, and I broke it down to two things: either two things that the church won't talk about, or some people believe the church shouldn't talk about. You could throw anything in there, whether it be sexual orientation, politics, whatever. But believe one of the reasons why the church won't talk about it is because, just like I admitted, I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I feel underqualified, but we can continue this conversation. We can. I think it helps if we could just begin the conversation and even admit maybe we don't know everything, but we do know that God's plan works. We know the Word works. We know that God. He created us like this. He didn't create us so that we would struggle mentally.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some solutions to this. Well, I really appreciate you being on. And if you guys have criticisms because we didn't,
because it's taboo,
or we didn't say the right thing,
right?
This is my first podcast. Have some mercy and grace
We
here.
also want to learn.
Yeah.
If you know more than us, let us know. I would love to do better.
I do, because one of the things is true. Our church, we love young people. I know y'all love young people. I know our staff loves young people. And if there's anything that breaks my heart is seeing young people being destroyed or or doing things that I think they'll regret later. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Tell all your friends.
I will. I will.
And so thanks for tuning in. We got some more podcasts coming up. We're going to be talking about things. We got some special guests. I know Mel Ponder's going to be with us. We're going to talk about politics in church. I know Dave Ellis is going to be with us. And we're going to talk about doubt and deconstruction.
Ooh,
I can't
wait.
Yeah. So
it's going to be great.
Catch y'all later.